seated.
Welcome to Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt of the Marquardt Law Firm at marquardtlawfirm.com.
Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt. On the radio, on Facebook Live, on YouTube, on podcasts everywhere, and on talklawradio.com, talking with Louis Vetter, president of the Conservation Society of San Antonio, about the lawsuit that was filed against UTSA and City of San Antonio about whether the State of Texas Pavilion should be demolished. We have Mike. You're live on the air.
Yes. I have a couple of questions. When the Conservation Society files a lawsuit, who funds that? Is it a Conservation Society, or do outside interests get involved? Because I know some of these civil suits can get to be quite pricey.
That's a great question.
Well, the first answer is the Conservation Society is paying for this activity. And that's a concern to us, obviously, it's because the money we're spending here is money we spending elsewhere in our preservation efforts. But we felt it was important enough, the board of directors approved that we take these actions.
Now, does this lawsuit, do you think, is it intended to overturn everything, or with the way the regulations are set up, is it just a matter of stalling something that inevitably they will eventually be able to do?
I think the best answer to that is it's not inevitable that they will be able to tear it down or get to do that. What we're really asking is that the city of San Antonio and the university have conversations and to work with the Texas Historical Commission, because there's a series of reviews and responses that are necessary. And what we want to do is require them that they comply with the Texas National Resource Code and the National Historic Preservation Act, that these are all under. And it doesn't guarantee it won't get demolished, but it forces everyone to take a much more proactive view. And what we're really striving for is for its reuse, its incorporation to Project Marvel and the elements that would go with it. So it's not necessarily hard-nosed in that sense.
See, I don't think they ought to tear it down, but I think instead of let it sit there and deteriorate, I think they need to come up with something, and then they better figure out how they're going to pay for it. Because if they tear it down, it's just going to be a vacant lot, because the Spurs are not moving downtown. I don't think the city's going to go along with that, or the citizens aren't. I mean, they got too many stadiums now. I mean, it's just not going to happen.
That's a great point, Mike. If they tear down the building and then there's no stadium put there, then what?
We have a parking lot for 15 years.
You can put some Longhorn cattle in there or let it pass.
That'd be a novel.
Thanks for the call.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
So I just wanted to follow up with that. Some of the news reporting has raised some issues about the cost to maintain the building. Can you speak to that?
Well, yes. There's been $1 million allocated by the state legislature to the University of Texas to help maintain that structure. And so there's been some of that. Plus, even looking at UTSA's own studies of 2 years ago, that the structure itself is sound. The fact that there's maybe at most $7 million of deferred maintenance, but it's not an extraordinary amount of money to continue to be able to reuse and incorporate that building. Many times I've been in conversations, and UTSA says it's going to take $178 million to upgrade and restore that building. But that's for the current standards for modern museums. And this isn't intended to be a museum. And so, that number is, misleading in the sense of it's not a big number to make it usable.
Okay. So right now, the museum Institute of Texan Cultures is in storage.
Since May, they shut it down, they closed the doors, and put it in storage.
And so what was the use in doing that? Why did they move? Why did they want to move out of that building?
Well, there's probably a couple of reasons, and you probably want to get the answers directly from them, but my take on it is the location at the southeast corner of Hemisphere is not necessarily as conducive to walking to. And they want to pick up foot traffic from the Alamo, basically, because, again, it's tourists walk around.
Oh, I see.
And so there's an empty parking lot behind there. They'd like to be able to go and buy and relocate and build a new place.
Okay. So we've been talking about conservation throughout the show, and I sort of think that that's an issue when people think of their own legacy. You talked about the identity of the city. As a estate planning attorney, I talk about legacy with people every day about what they're going to leave their family members, and if they're going to leave somebody an inheritance, what do you hope that your beneficiaries will achieve by receiving that? And so I think here too, you brought up the conservation of that building is part of San Antonio's identity now. What do you think the legacy is going to be if we redevelop everything and all of these old buildings are just go by the wayside?
We end up with a plaque somewhere. One of the things that we did as a conservation society when the move was to tear down the Woolworth buildings, a lot of the culture and heritage and the history of what went on in terms of desegregation movements and such. So when they wanted to reimagine or reposition what they're doing with the Alamo, we took a very strong stand. We had a very effective coalition. And as a result of that, the facades, those buildings have been preserved, and it's going to be utilized for a very modern and very effective museum. But we didn't lose the culture and the looks of what went on with it. Mm-hmm. And so that's just an example of you don't have to have an absolute, do it my way or no way, but to be able to protect the things that have that culture reflected.
When Mike called, the most recent caller, he was asking about the cost to the Conservation Society of San Antonio. And I just wondered, as a follow-up question to having to fund the lawsuit and pay attorney's fees, do the members typically know that that's part of something that the society would do?
Well, the members are aware of what we're doing. We notify them all when we file the lawsuit of what we're accomplishing. And we also, for the fact that the board has approved these actions. I think we're in a good position to prevail, so those costs may not be there forever, again. But it's important enough. I mean, we've done things like this in the past where we've taken a position, and it's cost us money. And the sad part, that's the same money we can use for other purposes. I don't know if I mentioned, we provide that $100,000 worth of grants every year. Well, it's not necessarily that we're taking it from those funds, but it's, again, part of the strength that we have financially, and that's from our members and sponsors and such. But it's important enough to do so.
I was looking at one of the statutes, Section 191.0525 of the Texas Natural Resources Code, and also Section 191.173. 1.173 is what gives you the right to file a lawsuit to have the courts weigh in on this, right?
Yes, because again, we assert that part of it has to do with the deeds and the transfer of it. The fact that they have an obligation to retain this building permanently for the benefit of Texas. And so if this is not being upheld, then we have the opportunity to file those complaints.
Well, doesn't the deed restriction allow for it to be demolished and for something else to be built in its place?
No, it's very specific in terms of the building itself. The Texas Pavilion, built there in 1968 for Hemisphere, is that it was to have a permanent nature and also to stay in place and be, whether it's entertainment or other elements, but that the citizens of Texas could continue to use that structure, not that land.
Okay, so we've been talking about the State of Texas Pavilion, formerly home to the Institute of Texan Cultures, which has moved out because the UTSA wants them to have a different space, and so now it's empty.
That's right.
And it's scheduled to be demolished when?
Well, their goal is to have it done by the end of the summer. They're already actively taking work on that structure. You drive past there, and all you see is construction fencing around it. They've already removed the flagpoles and the entrance, the tiles for that. They've been required to preserve those, but hopefully that will have more of that than just flags and flagpoles.
Okay. Tell us also about the sign.
Oh, yes. Inside, anybody that's ever been to the Institute of Texan Cultures inside that building, the first thing you'll see this very large, beautiful neon sign of the state flag. And, you just are overwhelmed by it. Well, surprisingly, University of Texas is asking the general public to make donations to help relocate that sign to their new location once they have that up and running, which kind of struck me as ironic because, with the combination of the UTSA as well as the medical school budgets, they have a $2.2 billion budget. And so I think they'd probably be able to find some money within that without having to ask the citizens to pony up another $10 a piece to move the sign.
So the issues that I keep hearing over and over again from the callers and people that comment on social media is some people really enjoyed their experience going to the museum, Institute of Texan Cultures. Some people really enjoy the building itself, the State of Texas Pavilion. Some people value development and economic development of the city above of the history of the city. And some people want to save the most money because they don't want the city spending money on preservation. They don't want the city spending money on building new stadiums. They want the city to spend money on roads and water. I want to give you the last word, Mr. Vetter.
All right.
Talk to the people.
Well, the situation is this. I'm a citizen as well, so I want to make sure our money is well spent. But what we're trying to accomplish through this action is to make sure that we don't spend money twice, that we don't spend, probably $4 or $5 million to tear down a building that then to build something new on, particularly if it can be incorporated into future plans. And this is what it's all about. So we're looking out for the citizens of San Antonio. We want to help the city. We want to help UTSA to do these things right.
Thank you for joining me. I really enjoyed having you as a guest.
Thank you very much. I appreciate being here.
We'll talk to you later.
This has been Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt, brought to you by the Marquardt Law Firm. You can learn more at marquardtlawfirm.com. And be sure to listen to the full Talk Law Radio show Saturday mornings at 11 on 9:30 a.m. The Answer.
Each week, attorney Todd Marquardt talks about the law. His mission with the Talk Law Radio show and podcast is to help you discover your legal issue blind spots. In the beginning, God had one law. Don't eat from the fruit of that tree. Then came the Ten Commandments. Now we have federal, state, and municipal lawmakers that won't stop creating new laws. Laws that might impact you without you knowing it. Listen to the show and drop a line on Facebook or email host@talklawradio.com and let the host know what you think of the show, the topics you want to hear, and whether you want to be a guest.